Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah and alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. This is your brother Samir Kabir, and to start off today's episode of Call Upon Me, I wanted to start off with a simple exercise. Try to remember the last time you did an act of ibadah with a group of people. Let's say maybe pre-quarantine. It can be anything, whether it is praying salah, doing dhikr, or reading Quran. Now take that same act of ibadah and try to remember the last time you did it with a friend or family member. Finally, I want you to take that same action and try to remember the last time you did it by yourself. In the last scenario, do you think you performed the action as completely and with excellence as compared to how you performed it when you were with a group of people? A common answer, if we're being honest with ourselves, is that no, we may not have been as complete or excellent in performing those actions by ourselves. Now, today's dua focuses on this aspect, the aspect of presenting our best self to Allah both in private and in public. So, the story behind this dua is that once a group of people, they were sitting with a great scholar, an elderly scholar, and they asked him for a dua that he could share with them. This elderly man, the scholar, his name was Yusuf ibn al-Hussein. When they were sitting with him, someone went up to him and they said, "O Abu Yaqub," calling him by his kunya. They said, "O Abu Yaqub, share a dua with us." So he thought for some time and then he said, "Allahumma inni nasahtu li khalqika zahiran wa ghashashtu nafsi batinan fahab li ghishiyi nafsi li nushi li khalqik." After he mentioned this dua, he cried and cried for a while, and then he passed away shortly after. This beautiful dua that he mentioned contains a deep meaning that sometimes you'll find someone that is sincere to the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but in the process of being sincere to the creation, they ultimately lose sincerity with who it matters the most with, the Creator Himself, Allah Azza wa Jal. They lose those private moments of devotion and they excuse themselves from doing those things because of the great things that they do outside of the house. It's very easy to be fooled into thinking that, oh, I'm doing all of this great stuff for everyone else, so I don't have to worry about myself in private, and I can go crazy when I'm by myself. In this situation, you have this man that is calling upon Allah with full acknowledgement. He says, "Oh Allah, I was sincere to your creation in public, but I was disgraceful in private. So I didn't harm anyone but myself, so forgive me. Forgive me for that private disgrace because of my sincerity to your creation and not to you." It's a beautiful dua because it acknowledges that I fell short in private, but I want to be forgiven for that. And Allah knows whether his private life actually had anything that was deeply flawed or if it was just the really high standard that he held himself to. But this is a beautiful way to call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah forgive us for the things that we do in private that harm ourselves because of the good that we do to His creation. So, a sign of a trustworthy person, a person of integrity and good character, is that they are consistent in their ihsan and ikhlas, of their good actions in public and in private, and they do not consistently perform actions that are worse or are looked down upon in private. The scholars of Tazkiyah, or the scholars that studied the purification of the soul, they mention regarding the private sins that they hinder your spiritual progress and they kill your heart because it makes you two-faced. It increases you in your hypocrisy and in trying to keep up the facade of goodness to others in a public setting. It's often difficult to restrain the other face that we nurture in private when we are disobedient to Allah. You purposely try to ignore Allah Azza wa Jal and His consequences of this hypocrisy. In remedying this hypocrisy, it's important to consider our current state of lockdown. Allah has blessed us with a beautiful opportunity. Since we are in a state of isolation, most of the actions we perform are in a private space, whether they be good or bad. Especially in Ramadan, we have a heightened perception of these actions and what drives us to perform them. I encourage myself and all of you to take some time during these last 10 nights to take the first step and acknowledge that discrepancy in how we act in public and in private. Have we been fearing Allah and presenting the same face in both public and private? Or are we being two-faced about it by selling a facade of taqwa in public, while being even worse when we think we are by ourselves? This is our opportunity to define whether each action we perform will be for Allah's sake or for the sake of the people. If we find ourselves in the latter situation, ask Allah for sincerity and supplicate with this dua. Allahumma inni nasahtu li khalqika zahiran wa ghashashtu nafsi batinan fahabli ghashiyyi nafsi li nushi li khalqik. May Allah purify our intentions and allow us to perform our actions for His pleasure. May He grant us and increase us in our taqwa so we can fear Him in both private and public. May Allah Azza wa Jal also rectify our private and public lives in a way that is most pleasing to Him. May He allow us to preserve and amplify our good habits outside of Ramadan and forgive and rid us of our bad habits both in public and in private. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.